Caitlin Clark just dropped an absolutely massive and earth-shattering message regarding the future of the Indiana Fever roster. People out there in the media who are constantly calling her a control freak are completely missing the massive picture that is currently unfolding right in front of our very eyes. The entire professional basketball league is currently buzzing out of control about a landscape-altering trade that could fundamentally change everything we know about the sport. Yet somehow, absolutely nobody in the mainstream sports media is actually talking about the real, underlying, and terrifying reason behind this massive front office shift. If you consider yourself a true diehard fan of women's professional basketball, then this specific video is going to entirely reveal the harsh, undeniable truth that major television networks are deliberately trying to sweep under the rug. If you stick around and watch this intense breakdown all the way to the very end, you are going to finally uncover the undeniable truth behind the fateful contract negotiation that is currently sending massive shockwaves through the entire league ecosystem. You are going to finally understand the exact mathematical reason why one single, solitary defensive statistic absolutely forced the Indiana Fever front office executives to take immediate and drastic action before it was entirely too late. And perhaps most importantly, you will learn exactly why Caitlin Clark's physical safety and well-being on the hardwood right now means absolute life or death for the entire financial future of women's sports as we currently know it. Just a really quick but incredibly important note before we dive deep into this intense film breakdown and advanced statistical analysis today. Every single piece of shocking information you are about to hear in this broadcast is firmly based on heavily verified insider reports and publicly available salary data and actual raw game film analysis. The WNBA report channel does not officially represent Caitlin Clark or the Indiana Fever organization or the WNBA front office in any legal or official capacity whatsoever. We are absolutely not here to pick sides or play favorites in this incredibly intense league-wide drama that is unfolding daily. We are simply here to peel back the complicated layers and expose exactly what the raw numbers and the brutal game tape are actually screaming at us right now. Every single opinion shared in this broadcast is meant strictly for deep informational insight, and we hold the absolute utmost respect for every single phenomenal athlete involved in this ongoing complex discussion. Throughout the entirety of this past grueling regular season, Caitlin Clark was constantly subjected to some of the most vicious and career-threatening fouls we have ever seen broadcast on national television. A massive portion of the loyal fan base was left absolutely furious and completely heartbroken watching the terrifying silence coming directly from her own coaching staff while their generational star was being openly hunted on the hardwood. You could literally hear the massive arena crowd gasping for air every single time she hit the deck hard after a blindside screen or a wildly unnecessary hip check in fast break transition. There were incredibly harsh criticisms circulating throughout the sports world that head coach Stephanie White was intentionally suffocating Clark's explosive offensive potential by forcing her into a painfully slow and incredibly rigid half-court offensive system. Passionate fans were screaming at their televisions and blowing up social media begging for someone on that Indiana bench to finally stand up and draw a definitive physical line in the sand. Every single time Caitlin drove aggressively into the painted area, it felt exactly like she was walking completely alone into a dark alley, surrounded by opposing veteran players who were entirely determined to test her ultimate physical limits. The physical and mental toll was visibly mounting on the young phenom as the grueling 82-game schedule mercilessly dragged on week after exhausting week. Opposing defensive schemes were making it their absolute life mission to bump her and grab her jersey and violently contest every single inch of breathing room she desperately tried to create on the perimeter. It was a brutal baptism by fire, completely unlike anything we have ever witnessed for a rookie point guard in the entire history of professional basketball. Defenders were practically living inside her jersey from the moment the referee tossed the ball up for the opening tip-off until the final buzzer sounded. You could see the sheer exhaustion in her eyes as she constantly had to fight through double teams and brutal trap defenses just to simply receive an inbound pass near the half-court line. The sheer volume of uncalled contact she endured every single night would have easily broken the spirit of a lesser athlete within the first month of the season. But we have to actually look incredibly closely at what the underlying analytical data truly reveals about how this specific roster fundamentally operates under extreme pressure. The moment Sophie Cunningham officially stepped her foot onto the hardwood, the entire atmospheric pressure of the arena shifted in the blink of an eye. She is absolutely not just some average bench player who happens to scrape together 8.6 points per game with incredibly high shooting efficiency. Sophie Cunningham instantly became the aggressively beating heart and the ferocious soul of the entire Indiana Fever franchise the second she put on that jersey. She fearlessly stepped directly into the incredibly dangerous role of the ultimate team enforcer, and she became the blazing spark that violently woke up the dormant fighting spirit of that entire locker room. Every single opposing team in this tough league suddenly knew perfectly well that if they even thought about trying to physically bully Caitlin Clark, they were going to have to deal with a tall and incredibly strong guard who possesses a strictly zero-tolerance attitude. Cunningham was always the very first player sprinting at top speed across the court to get right into the face of absolutely anyone who dared to lay a cheap shot on the franchise point guard. She completely transformed the Indiana Fever from a fundamentally soft and easily intimidated perimeter-oriented squad into a terrifyingly aggressive collective that possessed actual venomous fangs on the defensive end. It was exactly like watching a massive switch flip inside the entire organization the very moment they realized someone finally had their backs in the darkest and most physical alleys of this veteran league. The sharp squeak of the sneakers on the polished wood and the loud, aggressive trash talk echoing across the packed arena suddenly belonged entirely to Indiana. They were suddenly the ones heavily dictating the physical terms of engagement every single night, instead of constantly reacting to the aggression of their seasoned opponents. You could visibly see the heavy burden of relief washing over Caitlin Clark's face, knowing she finally had a relentless, loyal bodyguard who was more than willing to take a technical foul just to send a crystal-clear message to the rest of the league. It is incredibly rare in modern sports to find a player who embraces the rugged villain role so perfectly while simultaneously shooting the absolute lights out of the gymnasium from beyond the arc. When the game was on the line and the crowd was screaming so loud you could not even hear yourself think, Cunningham was the one diving headfirst onto the floor for loose balls like her life depended on it. She brought an unmatched level of pure swagger and intimidation that forced the rest of the starting lineup to elevate their own intensity to match her fiery frequency. Every time she drained a clutch three-pointer in the face of a closing defender, she would let out a primal scream that practically shook the rafters of the home arena. However, maintaining that exact level of ferocious physical play and securing her long-term contract is not actually the biggest nightmare, keeping the WNBA financial experts awake at night right now. The entire professional league is currently blasting headfirst into an unprecedented era of massive financial explosion that we have truly never seen before in the long history of this sport. With the brand new league-wide salary cap suddenly skyrocketing up to a staggering $7 million, these front office franchises suddenly possess a massive war chest of cash to aggressively spend on talent. This unbelievable and sudden influx of television money has immediately created the absolute perfect leverage for highly coveted free agents who are desperately hunting for their ultimate career payday, just like Sophie Cunningham. Meanwhile, the Indiana Fever front office is currently sweating bullets behind closed doors, trying desperately to solve an incredibly brutal financial mathematical equation. They have already locked themselves into a massive supermax financial commitment, guaranteeing a staggering $1.4 million strictly for their star veteran Kelsey Mitchell. That previously massive salary pool is suddenly drying up faster than water in the desert heat, because championship-caliber talent demands top-tier compensation in this newly enriched market. The immense pressure coming from incredibly wealthy and highly ambitious new expansion franchises like the Portland Fire and the Toronto Tempo is becoming terrifyingly real with every single passing day. These brand new expansion organizations are aggressively prowling the open free agent market, and they are absolutely desperate to secure established, recognizable stars who can actually sell out their massive, brand new arenas. They are absolutely drooling over the exciting prospect of acquiring a fiery fan favorite who boasts an unbelievable three-point shooting percentage of 47%, exactly like Sophie Cunningham does. If the Indiana front office miscalculates this incredibly delicate and tense situation and tries to lowball her with a financially disrespectful offer, they could completely lose their most vital defensive shield literally overnight. Losing a player with that specific unique combination of elite sharpshooting and terrifying physical intimidation is something a championship contending team simply cannot afford to let happen. The Portland Fire ownership group has publicly stated they are willing to open up their massive checkbooks to instantly create a winning culture from day one of their inaugural season. The Toronto Tempo front office has been aggressively scouting the entire league looking for the exact type of disruptive defensive energy that Cunningham brings to the floor every single night. The fear of her packing her bags and leaving for a more lucrative contract up north or out west is a very real nightmare scenario that is giving the Indiana coaching staff sleepless nights. But as we all know, cold, hard cash is almost never the only single deciding factor when it comes to finalizing a blockbuster roster move of this massive magnitude in professional sports. That is exactly where the true, undisputed power of the league finally decides to step directly into the blazing spotlight and make its powerful voice heard loud and clear. Right in the very chaotic center of this massive, swirling hurricane of trade rumors and contract disputes, Caitlin Clark decided to completely shatter her usual media silence. She stepped directly up to the press conference microphone and very publicly declared her desperate and unwavering desire to keep this exact core group of battle-tested warriors together for the long haul. When the single magnificent athlete who is single-handedly driving the most massive media attention and generating the highest astronomical revenue in the entire history of the league decides to speak up, every single general manager is absolutely forced to sit down and listen very carefully. Clark knows better than anyone else on the planet that you cannot simply buy the type of deep locker room chemistry and fierce on-court loyalty that she has actively built with Cunningham. There was actually a truly terrifying moment recently where the loyal Indiana fanbase completely panicked because they mistakenly believed Cunningham was about to suddenly retire from professional basketball altogether. Wild, unverified rumors were flying wildly across every social media platform that she was going to permanently transition into a full-time, highly lucrative sports media broadcasting career. This entire massive public misunderstanding originated the exact moment she officially announced to the world that she was joining the massive USA Network broadcasting team as a premier studio analyst during the offseason. Fans were absolutely devastated, thinking they were losing their favorite enforcer to the comfort and safety of a television studio desk job. However, highly connected league insiders and confidential internal team reports incredibly quickly verified that this was merely a strategic and brilliant side hustle meant to exponentially build her dominant personal brand off the court. She was simply capitalizing on her massive rising popularity to secure her long-term financial future while remaining entirely committed to bringing a championship trophy back to Indiana. Despite that incredibly reassuring news, the most seasoned basketball experts and medical professionals are still incredibly cautious and deeply terrified regarding her heavily documented and extensive medical history. Specifically, they are constantly pointing toward the incredibly devastating torn anterior cruciate ligament injury that Cunningham suffered right near the exhausting end of the previous grueling season. Anyone who has ever played competitive sports knows that coming back from a completely torn knee ligament requires an excruciatingly painful and mentally draining rehabilitation process that tests the absolute limits of human endurance. There is a very loud and highly vocal faction of hardcore sports analysts who strongly believe the Fever organization should completely redirect that massive pile of money toward upgrading the overall healthy depth of the roster. They aggressively argue on national television that it is financially irresponsible to sink millions of guaranteed dollars into a highly aggressive physical player who rarely manages to stay completely healthy enough to survive an entire bruising regular season schedule. They look at the sheer violence of her playing style and mathematically calculate the extremely high probability of her suffering another catastrophic lower body injury if she continues to throw her body around recklessly. The front office is basically playing a massive high-stakes game of poker, trying to balance the undeniable immediate impact she has on winning against the terrifying long-term risk of her knees completely giving out again. This incredibly intense and highly public tug-of-war between valuing pure undeniable on-court talent versus prioritizing crucial locker room cultural fit leads us directly to a profoundly deep lesson. When you take a giant step back and look far beyond the simple painted boundaries of a standard professional basketball game, Caitlin Clark's incredible journey teaches us a fundamental universal principle about achieving true, lasting greatness. Crushing external pressure does not actually forge true champions out of thin air, simply by existing. It is entirely about how you consciously choose to react to that suffocating pressure and exactly how you strategically assemble a deeply loyal team around you that truly dictates the ultimate final outcome of your career. Clark was violently thrust headfirst into a veteran professional league that was frankly completely unprepared to handle the massive media circus and the blinding spotlight she brought with her. She was unfairly forced to carry the absolutely impossible weight of totally unrealistic public expectations squarely upon her young rookie shoulders, while seasoned veterans actively tried to tear her down. But instead of completely crumbling and giving up in the face of all that intense veteran hostility and overwhelming media scrutiny, she quickly realized a vital and undeniable truth. She brilliantly understood that she could absolutely never fight against an entire, deeply entrenched physical league system entirely by herself, no matter how many deep three-pointers she could consistently hit. Her incredibly fierce and unwavering public defense of the exact teammates who willingly sacrificed their own physical bodies to protect her proves something incredibly profound about her character. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that achieving the absolute highest pinnacle of athletic glory is very rarely a solitary individual accomplishment. She recognized that the blood, sweat, and tears shed by her teammates, setting those brutal screens and taking those hard fouls, were the exact reasons she was able to shine so brightly on the offensive end. This is not just some cheap, sensationalized sports drama designed to get easy, cheap clicks on the internet from casual fans. This is an absolutely flawless and masterfully executed blueprint demonstrating exactly how a true generational leader navigates through incredible adversity in the harsh reality of the unforgiving real world. It shows us that true loyalty is forged in the fires of intense competition when you literally put your own career on the line to publicly demand respect for the people fighting in the trenches right beside you. If watching Sophie Cunningham fiercely and unapologetically defend her superstar teammate from cheap shots ever made you jump straight out of your living room chair, then I need you to drop a basketball emoji right down into the comment section this very second. Let us show this incredibly dynamic and highly entertaining duo exactly how many die-hard, loyal fans are standing right by their side and completely supporting the fiercely competitive winning culture they are actively building in Indiana. I also need you to tell me your absolute most honest and completely unfiltered opinion regarding this entire messy and highly controversial situation dominating the sports news cycle. Do you truly believe deep down in your heart that Caitlin Clark is currently being treated fairly by the league officials and the mainstream media and her veteran professional peers who clearly harbor deep resentment? I want you to drop your most brutally honest and highly detailed thoughts right down below in the comments, because we make a solemn promise to read every single one of them. We absolutely refuse to ever delete or censor any dissenting opinions because healthy, passionate debate is exactly what makes following this phenomenal sport so incredibly great. Every single comment you actively leave on this video directly signals the powerful YouTube algorithm and directly helps this crucial story reach even more passionate sports fans who desperately deserve to hear the whole unfiltered truth. The mainstream sports networks are terrified of having this exact nuanced conversation because it completely ruins their carefully crafted and highly sanitized corporate narratives. So if you strongly believe that the real, unvarnished truth needs to be broadcast to the entire world, then I need you to go down there and make some massive noise in the comment section right now. Bypass the gatekeepers and let your actual voice be heard loud and clear by the people who genuinely care about the pure integrity of this beautiful game. Now you are finally fully armed with the absolute clearest and most incredibly accurate picture of exactly what is truly unfolding behind the scenes regarding Caitlin Clark and the highly controversial Indiana Fever roster situation. You completely understand the massive financial stakes involving the $7 million salary cap and the massive expansion draft threats from Portland and Toronto. You recognize the undeniable defensive value of a player who shoots 47% from deep while simultaneously acting as the most terrifying enforcer in the entire league. But you absolutely need to hold on to your seats and wait until you finally uncover the horrifying and completely shocking truth about what Angel Reese was actually forced to endure behind tightly closed locker room doors. That particular untold story involving her highly publicized rookie campaign is infinitely more shocking and significantly more brutal than anything we have even begun to discuss here today. The media absolutely refused to cover the dark reality of what was happening to her franchise behind the scenes while the cameras were turned off. I just finished producing an incredibly detailed and exhaustive 20-minute film breakdown video that completely decodes that entire massive front office cover-up from start to finish. You absolutely do not want to miss a single solitary second of that incredibly mind-blowing and deeply disturbing journalistic investigation. That highly requested investigative video is actually popping up directly on your screen right at this very moment. So go ahead and click it right now to continue discovering the real truth.